First, let's start off with this event, the Nigeria Dialogue. You've moved with the train from Atlanta to here, Houston. What's your assessment of this project? How far do you see this project going?
I think I completely identify with the vision of the project from the rationale that the diaspora is a key community for Africa's economic development, and therefore a key community for Nigeria's economic and social development. And it's such a huge community of assets, whether it's human capital or financial asset, or in terms of the network and the partnership and the leverage that they bring to the development process. It's so crucial that the voice of the diaspora be connected to everything that happens in our country.
Okay, I'm a bit curious because the Nigerian in diaspora seems to be the toast of the government and even non-for-profit organizations at the moment. There was a recent one where the Debt Management Authority were in Houston too with Nigerians in diaspora. Why is this coming? Why are all these events coming at this point in Nigeria's history?
I don't know. I don't think I am as curious as you about it, or maybe suspicious as you about it. When I was at the World Bank, I focused on developing the concept of the diaspora and integrating the opportunities that they represent into the development process. It would be a total waste of such huge capital for the continent to ignore its diaspora. So I wouldn't even waste my time trying to figure out whether there is anything behind the idea of countries wanting to reach out to the huge capital that their human resource that are outside represent to them. You could say the same thing about India, or you could say the same thing about China. Any country that's not reaching out to its diaspora is not thinking with economic rationality.
Okay, so you did make mention of poor governance while you were discussing. How do you think Nigerians in diaspora can lend a voice or give a voice to improve governance back home?
In many ways, the diaspora is an influential community. They've got huge links and connections to both the technology that can support the process of effective monitoring of the governance process. They've got huge platforms that they belong to, where their voice can make a difference in the pressure that is brought to bear in the way that government makes its decisions and its choices and its priorities. They've got experience from living in societies that have much longer experience of institutions of democracy. And so the culture of democratic accountability is something that they know, the tradition, the nuances, the principles, the ideals of democratic accountability is something that they understand. So it's a lot easier for them to identify with that necessity to begin to grow the body of practice of democratic accountability back at home. And so if they made a determination that they would be leading lights in the demand for good governance, they could play that role.
Okay, now let's move away from the present Nigeria Dialogue event and just take a trip back into some things that happened in Nigeria in the past, one of which you were in the badge, hashtag Bring Back Our Girls. You were in the forefront of this campaign. And as a mother, as an activist, as a former Minister of Education, how would you describe the reaction or government's response towards this?
Frankly, it has been appalling. It has not. Our government, in all candidness, mismanaged the rescue of these girls. In the early days of their rescue, there was doubt, there was indifference. there was general slow and tardiness, a slow response and tardiness of response. And so this kind of made it more difficult for the girls to have been rescued. And so it's 5 months after, and we're still at it. I think that our country failed these girls in presenting the opportunity for their successful abduction, and then we're failing them a second time. But I hope that we don't permanently fail them, and that before the 6th month that these girls will be rescued. I mean, how can you even explain that 219 human beings, the best of your younger generation, are held captive in the enemy den for this number of months, and that their lives are in such grave danger, and the society just moves on like nothing happened? It's too inhumane to even think of it. And so for us, and you said as a mother, as a mom, I can't see myself just moving on, knowing that we could save these girls. We really could save these girls. And that's why we continue to stay resolved to standing in solidarity with them. We're never going to keep quiet. The voice that we bring to their issue to ensure that the silence that some people desperately want concerning them is not given will always be there until these girls are rescued.
To some critics, they've taken your being in the forefront of the activism as opposition. What do you have to say about this?
I think it's sad that they would even characterize an advocacy for the voiceless that is based on my deep understanding of what it takes to be a human being. I act on the pure basis of empathy, compassion. The fact that I know that these girls come from the segment of society, weak and vulnerable, poorer segment of society, that actually needs a voice like mine and yours in order to call attention to their issue. If these girls were the children of the elite in our society, I wouldn't have needed to come out in order to compel anybody to act, to play the responsibility that the Constitution mandates on them. It wouldn't have been necessary. They would have done everything to rescue their daughters. So since these ones have no voice, those of us who have voice are simply lending our voice to them. And we must not be put in a situation where we need to defend ourselves. I have nothing to defend. Absolutely nothing to defend.
So how would you describe the power of the social media in reaching out and helping this campaign? Because I was in Canada at some point and I did a couple of stories with the CBC, and I saw how people, Canada especially, is a country who was always completely detached from so many international issues, taking up the issue of the Bring Back Our Girls.
The social media was very important. It was through the social media that the speech where I asked everyone to stand and to stand in solidarity with our Chibok girls and to demand that they be brought back. It was my speech on the 23rd at a UNESCO book event that ended up in the hashtag Bring Back Our Girls. And as that hashtag was tweeted over and over again, because of the ubiquitous nature of the social media, because of the ubiquitous nature of the social media, it ultimately entered into many bedrooms. And by entering into many bedrooms, more and more people around the world took ownership of the problem. And the voice of so many people around the world, connected through globalization, compelled our government, which initially was studiously indifferent to what the tragedy that had befallen those girls, awoke to their responsibility that they needed to own the problem that had happened. Social media helped enormously in that awareness creation phase. Social media helped enormously in galvanizing the rest of the world to offer support. So, for example, all the nations of the world, like the US, the UK, China, Israel, Canada, Australia, Israel, that offered support. A lot of it came from the momentum that was generated by the social media advocacy. But the social media cannot act alone in of itself to provide the ultimate objective. The ultimate objective is the rescue of the girls. That has to be the responsibility of the entity that has the mandate and the control of the resources for rescue. And that's our federal government. And so we continue to advocate. We're never going to stop. We're never going to be silent. We refuse silence. We actually every day say no to silence on the Chibok girls. It is not time to move on. We cannot move on. Not without our daughters. Not without our daughters.
Is there any particular strategy put in place or any plan? Because months have rolled by and the girls are yet to return.
Well, that question is best answered by our government. We, in our own case, are determined to continue to encourage more stakeholders to put their voice